So there are things that people are looking for. So it's a situation where you have a chance to go on university campuses, talk to people, find out really what they're looking for. Also, with curriculum rules, it's one of those things where a lot of people, we're talking about what goes on up to the spring semester of your junior in high school, fall semester, senior in high school. All these things are important. A number of schools do recalculate your grade point average, but the simple reason is not all 3.0s are created equal. Do you agree? Okay. And that's where taking the most difficult curriculum you have will make a big difference when you apply to colleges and universities. And the application process also, the first part is really getting good biographical information, whether you go with a Common App or an institutional app. The recommendations, that's the thing I get a real kick out when I come up here in the greater Washington area, because people try to see who can outdo the next person on having the most impressive person write recommendations for people. We had one years ago from a person in politics who said, I know the mother of the grandmother, I do not know the student. If she's anything like the mother of the grandmother, she'll be a great student at your university. We took her. But the whole thing is, it's just one of those things where trying to have important people write for you really doesn't make that big a deal. Also, the school councils here at Hayfield, we send them a checklist basically, and they throw us a golden nugget about each of you, even though they have a large caseload. So you don't have to worry about that. Teacher recommendations, the one thing I caution with teacher recommendations is to share the profile of the college university that you are submitting an application to the teacher along with your profile, because schools change. School counselors know about us from year to year to year. They study family connection. A teacher may not understand how a school has changed in the last 10 or 15 years since they were in school. Also, avoid what I call the famous Amos Betty Crocker cookie cutter teacher recommender. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? It's the one, insert college name, insert student name, insert the wrong college name, thank you. That's basically how we get a laugh out of that, but we can tell that people are just cranking out recommendations left and right. And most schools, I think people have gotten used to understanding that's just part of the way that works. But spend some time with the teacher if you're going to have them write a recommendation for you. Stay away from the famous people. Activities list, another thing that happens up here. Someone puts a rumor, join 4 clubs fall semester of your senior in high school. You're really impressive admissions people. What more schools are looking for, 3 major activities. You've been a major participant consistently for 3 years, or 1 activity that rocks your world. It might be fine arts, might be athletics, might be scrapbooking, might be fishing. Whatever floats your boat, makes you happy and you have a passion for in your life, that's what we're looking for. Also, work. Yeah, work. That's something that doesn't happen probably until a student turns 18, but it's something where you want to see if you show up on time, you have a pleasant appearance, and you play well with others, just like kindergarten. And then when we're getting to the actual essay itself, the essay is really a big part of what's going on because it's a way in which you can tell us a little more about you. Also, the 2 major essay topics. Let me ask the panel. Which are the 2 major essay topics? So in unison. Service, mission, trip, athletic injury. Okay. Concussions. They're the 3 biggies we have each year. So if you happen to have that, the service, mission, trip, a health issue, concussion, sports injury, they're good, but they're really common. So we thought we'd just pass that along to you right now. And there are some great essays that come out from that standpoint. And then a personal statement optional. Optional is code word for do it, okay? The way I look at the essay, it's your major film, feature film. Your personal statement optional is your public service announcement. It pulls it all together. And then when it's all pulled together, the holistic view, as Lauren mentioned just a moment ago, it really does make an awful lot of sense because schools have different needs. Sam mentioned demonstrated interest. Demonstrated interest is a big part of what it is for many schools, simply by having an opportunity to be at the Career Center at Hayfield High School. Amy gives us basically 15 or 20 minutes, and you all know your sons and daughters will be signing up to see us. We'll give information on our schools. It is probably the greatest thing in the world for students to at least have it. They find out what they like, what they do not like. We might be able to help them find another school if it's not ours. And then when it's all said and done from the standpoint of the process, the waiting game is what really gets you. There's early decision, early action, final deadline, rolling. So all these deadlines, it's really good to do some research on trying to figure out which pool you may want to submit your application. And then one of the things that also is a big mystery is people say, well, if I go to X high school over Y high school, I'll have a better shot at getting in a particular university. And it doesn't work that way. What's going on with research right now? We see who enrolls, who applies, who enrolls, who graduates. And that really makes a big difference. So rather than having people recruit the world, we're trying to go for graduates. And right now, one of the sheer good pieces of information is out there. It was in the Washington Post in October this past year. They were talking about the college scorecard. Has anyone read the college scorecard? College scorecard is nothing to do, it's a government, it used to be called the White House scorecard. College scorecard, you can go and find out first year retention, you can find out graduation rates, you can find a lot of good information. You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. But what we recommend you do in this application process to apply to 5 schools. If you do your research correctly, you'll get in 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, or 5 out of 5 colleges. My goal is to have you have 5 big old thick envelopes hit your desk March 15th through April 1st. And then it gets down to 3 important things. First thing is trying to find a college that has an academic program that suits you, surrounding people, and try to find a college that suits your personality, which sounds a little lame, but it really makes a big sense. And then another challenge is that for you to look at the 5 schools, 3 of the 5 schools will have a 90% or better retention rate from the fall semester of freshman year to the fall semester of sophomore year. 2 of those 5 will probably be pulling 60%, and your jaw again is going to hit the ground on that. So it's something, yes, you can get in somewhere, but will you be able to graduate? And we are all about seeing students graduate from colleges and universities. I'm living proof. I was a first-generation college student. I did a 2-year associate degree, 4-year degree, master's degree. Different road to get to your final journey. I'm a big proponent of that. And we want to make sure that there's so much pressure on all of y'all up here that you have to make it happen immediately. There's so many great programs here. There's so many great opportunities. The whole thing is you need to be open to this and communicate. And here in Fairfax County, the reason so many people want to come to Fairfax County, this is the most well-informed group of people in the world. Students who come from Fairfax County, you can drop them in the middle of nowhere and they adapt. And they do well academically. Well, by meeting that profile, find the college suits your personality, and putting it all together, it'll be a win-win situation for everyone. At this time, I'd like to introduce Donnell Smith from North Virginia Community College.
All right, let's see if this thing is going to be nice and kind. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk about the community college option. My name is Donnell Smith. I'm one of the first-year academic advisors and also teach developmental math at the Alexandria campus, right down the street. Let me tell you a little bit about Nova. Nova is the 3rd largest community college in the U.S. We serve about 75,000 students. And when I first came there, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be huge. We're going to have auditorium classes like some of the larger schools. And I was walking around and I was like, these classrooms are little. You know, where are they putting everyone? And our largest class size is about 35. We can serve that many students because we serve students Monday through Sunday from 7 in the morning to 10 at night. We allow you to be able to have a lot of different options in regards to where do you start. Also as juniors, if you're not doing it already, please sign up for dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is an opportunity for you to be able to get a head start, get some college credits, and that also can help when you're looking at applying to 4-year schools, even if you don't come to Nova. Because you've already showed that you can do a college rigor. Some people say, hey, AP, dual enrollment. Myself, if you're not a good standardized test taker, dual enrollment. Because dual enrollment is going to give you an opportunity to have your entire year to create your grade. The AP, to get the college credit, is going to come down to that one day when you take that standardized test. Whether you're going to get that college level credit and everything. So take advantage of some of the opportunities and everything are here. Also, if you're looking at, we have a lot of different programs. We heard some people talk about, sports and different activities. Because we're such a large institution, we also have junior college sports. So you have those types of things that you can continue on for the first 2 years and everything of school. And as a parent, I look at one of the largest debts that is out there now for most students and for a lot of parents is student loan debt. It's one of those things of no matter what you do, it's like cockroaches, you can't get rid of them. So it's one of those things of how can you save a little bit of money the first couple of years or even the first semester before going on to that 4-year institution. When I do orientations, I often give an example. I give an example of, for an in-state student, we charge $171.25 per credit hour. Most public schools charge about $450. Some private schools charge about $1,100. So that same English 111 class, which is a 3-credit course, for us, will run you about $500. Thank you. For us, it'll run you about $500. That same English 111 course at a public university will run you about $1,500. That same one at a private institution will run you about almost $3,000. I teach math. To me, that's easy math and everything to figure out to do some of those early courses. So when you're looking at what options and everything do you take? Look at, do you start with Nova? Look at, even if you go to a 4-year school, do you take a class at Nova in the summer? Look at, just the different, options in regards to getting started and looking at what are going to be the options and everything for you. We do 2 different types of associate's degrees, and we also do certificates. And the certificates, I call them resume builders. Those are some of the things that I often get my students to be able to do an associate's in one thing and a certificate in something that's related. So it helps them to be able to kind of figure out, is this what I really want to do at the 4-year level? So that they're not at the 4-year level trying to figure out, hey, I want to do IT, but do I want to do networking? Or do I want to do programming? Or do I want to do, help desk? It helps you to be able to kind of identify some of those things and take them at a certificate level, again, to be able to see, when I get to the 4-year school, I'm ready to roll. So what I say and what I stress is, on the last thing, are you built to go away at 17, 18, and 19? As parents, you really have to look at your child. As children, you really have to look at yourself in the mirror. There's a reason why a lot of students start off with going away to a 4-year school, and within a semester or 2, they're back home. Some of them are just not built to go away at 17, at 18. But at 19, at 20, they're able to really be a good caretaker of the opportunity that the 4-year schools can offer. And the final thing is guaranteed admission agreements. If you come and you go to any community college within the state of Virginia, and you get a 2-year transferable degree, and you meet the GPA requirements for the 4-year school, we have agreements with over 50 schools all around the state and in other states, and actually now with a couple of schools in England. Different schools have different criteria. For Virginia Tech, it's a 3.4 GPA. So you must maintain a 3.4 GPA at Nova or another community college, and they will guarantee you admission into the school. They don't guarantee admission into a department, but into the school. At Mason, is a 2.85. Again, it will get you into the school. And again, you don't want to set your goals high. These are minimum GPAs. Elon, I'm not sure of. And Washington, I think we're working on an articulation agreement with you all. Articulation agreements are something that we have with about 60 schools all around the country. And it says, if you meet the GPA requirements and you graduate with a 2-year degree from a community college, they will guarantee that they will start you off at junior status. They don't guarantee you a seat, but they will guarantee you that you start off at junior status. These are some of the reasons to kind of look at Nova or community college as options. And again, certainly use the option of high school, because for most of the high schools, it's free. There aren't many things left that you get for free, so take advantage of those. The other option is attend. And a third option is take courses with us in the summer to help supplement what you're doing at the 4-year school. But since I work there, I say start at Nova first.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Actually, I'll hold on to it. So, thank you. My name's Kevin Jenkins. I'm the director of the College Place, Northern Virginia. I assist students and families with the college admissions and financial aid process. So you got to listen to all these wonderful people talk about their colleges. Now I'm going to I'm here to remind you that you do have to pay for it. And as a previous speaker had said, there's about 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States, and they all cost money, okay? So I want to just kind of discuss a couple of applications that you're going to be dealing with next year and some of the changes that have taken place for the junior class. So the first application I want to talk about is the CSS profile. Now, this is an application that you may or may not have to fill out next year. There's about 700 colleges and universities that will actually look at the CSS profile. And what it is, it's an application that some colleges will ask you to fill out if you want to be considered for need-based financial aid, more specifically, need-based institutional financial aid. Okay, so we're going to talk about some institutional financial aid as well as government financial aid, but I just wanted to kind of go over the CSS profile with you guys. So this application does cost money. It's $24 for one college, $16 per additional college. Okay, you want to make sure to see if the college you're applying to looks at the profile, because if they don't, you're just filling it out for nothing, and I don't want you to do that. Okay, any college that looks at the CSS profile, they will usually make it an optional thing. So they may say, if you want to be considered for institutional need-based financial aid, you must fill out the CSS profile. Some will say, if you're applying early decision, they may require you to fill out the CSS profile because they want to see what your financial picture is before they send you a financial aid package. Okay, so the only two, and the other thing I just want to say, there's mainly private colleges that will ask students to fill out a CSS profile. There are 2 state colleges in Virginia, University of Virginia and College of William and Mary. They are 2 public schools that will look at the CSS profile. UNC is another school that will look at the CSS profile. That's also a public institution. But they are primarily private institutions, because what you will find as you begin the college admissions or college search process is that you'll see some public schools, you'll see some private schools. You'll notice the private schools are a little pricier than the public schools. However, private schools often have more money to award students. Okay, so that's why primarily the schools that will look at the CSS profile are private schools. Now, before we get into the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, unlike the CSS profile, the FAFSA is free. There is a new function to the FAFSA that you should be aware of, and that's called the FSA ID. Okay, so if you've had older students, if this is your second time or third time going through this process, you may have completed an application to get your 4-digit PIN. And that was the PIN that you used to sign the application. Okay, the FSA ID replaces that 4-digit PIN. Okay, so the FAFSA is no longer using the 4-digit PIN. However, if you have a 4-digit PIN, you can use it when filling out the FSA ID application. All right, and that'll just speed up the process because there is about a 3-day turnaround time for the application to verify your identity. All right. So what the application does, it's essentially a second layer of security to protect you from fraud and cyber crime and all the stuff that's going on. So this kind of protects you from that. It's not just another thing that you have to do to annoy you, even though it is annoying. It is something that you need to do. Okay, so you want to do this before you actually begin the FAFSA, all right? And the student will need an FSA ID as well as the parent, either the mother or the father. Only one parent needs it. The student uses the FSA ID in order to go into the FAFSA and complete it, and the parent will use their FSA ID to sign it, okay? And if the student is a dependent, which most students are, the parent would need to sign the FAFSA, okay? So let's talk about the FAFSA. Now there was, this year, the FAFSA begins January 1. Next year, for juniors, it will be available October 1st. So what the Department of Education is doing is they're trying to make it a little bit easier for parents to complete the application. Right now, because it's due, it begins January 1st, and typically colleges like to receive it around February 15th. Some colleges as early as February 1st, some colleges as late as March 1st. Doesn't really give you a whole lot of time to do the application, because generally what most families will do is they will file for their taxes and get their 1040s back and use that to complete the application. And so if you think about it, most people don't get their W-2s until late January, and then you go and you file for taxes, and then you only have a short period of time to get the application in. Okay, so what a lot of parents do is they estimate the information. So by moving it up a couple of months to October 1st, it prevents families having to estimate the information. Okay, so as we start unpacking the application, a lot of this will make a little more sense. Okay, so what I just want to do is kind of go over each section of the application so you can kind of see what you're going to need to do next year as you prepare. What I always tell my students to do is on January 1, but for you guys next year it'll be October 1st. You want to go ahead, do your FSA ID. It'll take you about 10 minutes. It's a fairly simple application, just follow the instructions. And then you could go in and access the FAFSA, okay? And you want to make sure that you do not access it. You do not access it prior to October 1st, because then you'll be working on the wrong application. So for you guys, it'll be the 2017-2018 FAFSA, okay? So the first section is student demographics. It's very basic information about the student. Nothing a student can't handle. So I say go in, do your FSA ID, start the application, start filling out the basic student demographic questions, okay? Other good thing about the FAFSA, because it's online, you can save and exit, okay? So you don't have to complete it once you begin, all right? So you can go ahead and start the application, get to a certain point, and then you may have to save and exit and wait for mom and dad to help you out. All right, so just a couple of questions that are asked in the student demographics section. Do you want to be eligible for work study? Okay, I always recommend students say yes to that, okay, because if you select yes for federal work study and you are eligible for it, you're not forced to work on campus, but it does give you the opportunity to work on campus. And I think working on campus is probably a little bit better than working off campus, because if you know you're working on campus, you're a student worker, okay? You're a student first. And I'm sure everybody on this panel has student workers in their department. They're great kids. I used to work at a college and I miss my student workers. So this is a need-based function, so you may or may not be eligible for federal work study. Some schools will still allow non-federal work study students to work on campus. So that's something that you may want to ask whatever school you're looking at. Now this is something that kind of freaks the guys out a little bit, okay? All males 18 years of age or older do have to register for selective service. Now, without turning this into an American history lesson, once upon a time in this country, we did have a draft. We no longer have a draft. However, we still do have a selective service registration. So if you're a male and you're looking to receive federal student aid, you would have to register for selective service. It's a pretty simple process. If you're 17 at the time, you can select Register Me, all right? And then that will automatically register you when you turn 18. The next section is the school selection. The FAFSA will allow you to input up to 10 colleges on the application. Now what this means is once you submit the FAFSA, you submit it to the federal government, to the Department of Education, but then the FAFSA will also send your information to the schools that you've selected, okay? So at this point, you probably won't know if you're admitted or not. So any school you're applying to, you need to put on this school selection form. Now, it will also allow you to manipulate the order in which they appear, which, correct me if I'm wrong, schools will no longer look at what other colleges you're applying to. I know this was this kind of caused some concern because before, when schools receive your application, they can see what other schools you're applying to, and this kind of made some people uncomfortable. So to do away with that, the schools will no longer be able to see where else you're applying. However, you would need to input the schools on the application so they can get your information to the financial aid office of the schools you're applying to. I hope no one's applying to more than 10 schools. If we have any overly ambitious student who's applying to more than 10, you can put the 10 schools on the application, submit it, okay, wait a couple days for it to process, and then you could go back in and you could add more schools to that, okay? But I don't recommend applying to more than 10 schools. I don't want you to have an ulcer by the time you're a senior. Okay, so the next section is dependency. All right, now this is one of those sections where a lot of students will say, well, I'm independent, I pay my own cell phone bill, and I have a job, and that's good. But there's, the FAFSA has a very specific definition of dependent and independent. And the way the FAFSA does it is they give you about 13 or 14 yes-no questions. Most students will answer no to all of them. If you answer no to all of them, you will be considered a dependent student, and you would then be required to submit your parents' information, okay? If you answer yes to any of those questions, you would be considered independent, and then you can skip the parental financial portion of the application, okay? So, and I get this call all the time from parents who, how do I make my kid independent? And it doesn't really work that way. You just have to answer the questions. I get that question a lot, you'd be surprised. So you do have to answer the questions on the dependency form. The next section is parent demographic. This is information about the parent. And I think this is also kind of important because this is a mistake I see a lot, where the student will get in the student demographic, and it'll ask, "Are you married?" And the student thinks they're asking about the parents, but they're asking, "Are you, the student, married?" And if sometimes the student will say yes, because they think they're talking about their parents, and then the FAFSA says, "Okay, you're independent." And then they think they're getting all this money, and then I have to be the one to be the bearer of bad news, which I'm used to, so it's okay. So the parent demographics is basic information. When were you married? If you're divorced, when were you divorced? Basic questions. The student may not be able to answer it, but this is usually where the parent could come in and help out. The next one is the fun part. This is the financial information. So the FAFSA is mainly going to look at household income. They're going to look at how much you pay in taxes. They're going to look at how much money you have saved up. They're not going to look at your retirement plan. The Department of Education is not going to expect you to dip into your retirement to pay for college. However, if you withdraw any money from a 401k or a retirement plan, you do have to, that's considered income. Okay, so that's something you may want to think about as you're kind of crunching the numbers in your head. So again, the easiest way to do this is to take the information from your 1040s when you do your taxes. Also, next year for the juniors, when you guys are seniors, the FAFSA will be looking at prior tax information. Okay, so for example, the students I'm working with now, the seniors, we're using 2015 1040s. Okay, next year you will also be able to use 2015 1040s. Okay, so again, you don't have to worry about estimating because it's going to ask you for 2 prior years. Okay, and again, I'll be here if you have any questions. I just want to make sure everybody's straight on everything. Okay, now one of the questions I get about the 529, sometimes parents will say, well, you know what, I'm saving money in a 529 plan, but I feel like I shouldn't be because I have to report that. And what I basically tell parents is, look, I'd rather you save money and collect interest on that than borrow money and pay interest on a loan. Okay, so if you're kind of questioning whether or not you should be saving money in a 529, I think you definitely should. I don't see any reason why you should not be saving up your money. The IRS data retrieval tool is something that the FAFSA uses. It's a great tool where the application will pull information from the irs.gov website. Next year, it probably really, I can't imagine it being relevant next year because again, we're using prior information. So the IRS data retrieval really shouldn't matter for you guys, but it is a function that's currently on the FAFSA, and I'm assuming it'll be on next year's FAFSA, but we'll have to wait and see. This is also a question I get all the time from parents. If there's a divorce, which parent has to put their information in? And the easiest way to understand it is whoever the student lives with 50% or more of the time is the parent that will put their information on the FAFSA if the parents are divorced. Okay? Regardless of who claims who on taxes. It's another question I get all the time. And here's the other one, and you know, what I explain to people is if you marry somebody with a child, it's a package deal, okay? You're kind of marrying the child as well. Because a lot of times I'll have a parent gets remarried, and then the parent, the step-parent doesn't want to pay or doesn't want to support the child, and it just doesn't work that way, okay? If the parent remarries, the parent and the step-parent will need to include their financial information when they're filling out the FAFSA, okay? So, and I know that question's coming, so I just wanted to throw that out there. And then you get to the sign and submit page. This is just where when you put the password in, you put your FSAID password in, and you submit the application, and then it's going to take you to the confirmation page. Now, the confirmation page is going to be filled with a lot of good information, so don't just gloss through this page. It's important that you read it. It'll have the graduation rate and retention rates of all the schools that you've put on the school selection form. and that was discussed earlier. I think that's very important to look at graduation rate and retention rate. Graduation rate is measured off of 6 years. Okay, so that's something you should keep in mind. Some schools may give you the 4-year graduation rate, but when you're looking at it on the confirmation page, it will be in 6 years. The retention rate is the percentage of freshmen that return for their sophomore year. I think that's important to know. Then, of course, you're going to get the EFC. The EFC is the magic number. It's the EFC, you can think of it as like a financial score. It's a score that tells you your financial strength, okay? It could be anywhere from 000 to 999, okay? If you have a 0 EFC, that means you are eligible for the maximum amount of aid wherever you go. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you will go to school for free. Okay, there are some colleges that meet full need, okay? But understand it depends on the college you're going to, all right? Because the FAFSA will not be able to tell you this is how much it's gonna cost, okay? Only the college will be able to tell you that once they generate a financial aid package and send that to you. It'll tell you if you're eligible for a Pell Grant, which is a federal grant, okay? Maximum Pell Grant is $5,750. And then it'll tell you that you're eligible for a direct Stafford loan. Pretty much every student is eligible for a direct Stafford loan. Some students may be able to get a portion of that loan subsidized where the federal government will cover all the interest rate while the student's in school. So I just wanted to cover scholarships really quick. You have the Family Connection, which is a great tool for students. And you know, what I tell students is finding scholarships is the easy part. Okay, with the resources you have here at Hayfield High School, with some of the websites I'm going to show you, finding the scholarships is easy. Okay, it's the application process. All right, you got to do it. You got to fill out the application, write the essay, do whatever they ask you to do. Save the essays that you write in English class because you may be able to recycle those. All right, and you'd be surprised at how many students leave money on the table. So just by applying, you may actually get awarded some money, all right? Scholarships can range anywhere from a couple $100s to full tuition plus a research stipend or study abroad stipend, okay? There's some really great scholarships out there. So you gotta kind of figure out a strategy, okay? Do I wanna go for the low-hanging fruit? You know, do I wanna get multiple $500, $700, $1,000 scholarships that will add up? Or do I wanna swing for the fences? Maybe I wanna go for Gates or Questbridge, which covers everything, okay? The more money they award, the more difficult the application process is gonna be, okay? Which makes sense, all right? If you're going for a full tuition scholarship plus, it's gonna be a lot of work. It's gonna be a lot of essays, there may be an interview process, okay? You're gonna have to put in a lot of work, okay? If it's a smaller scholarship, it may just be an application. It may just be an application and an essay, it depends.